Keep the change, you filthy animals.
So in the month of December, while working on many other projects, I did decide to pick out a game and finally knock one off of my backlog. And the next game I picked out was
Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge.
Like many other people, I love the Nightmare Before Christmas film. For me, it's pretty much tradition at this point to watch it during Christmas. To be honest, I've always thought the cover for Oogie's Revenge has always kind of popped out to me. So I've definitely always wanted to give this game a try, and for this Christmas I figured, why not start now? Now in the past with some of my other reviews, I've done a 3 positive and 3 negative section, but I normally like to take out 3 things I loved about the game and 3 things I didn't like about the game, and kind of expound upon those reasons. But to start this review, I figured I'd add 1 more onto each positive and negative, and turn it into 4 positives and 4 negatives. Anyways, without further ado, here is my review of 2004's Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge, developed and published by Capcom. And as tradition on EnteR ChazmaN, let's go ahead and start with my 4 positives. My first positive in Oogie's Revenge overall would be most of the voice acting. It seems like they were able to get maybe half of the original voice actors from the movie back for the game. And as to why they couldn't get all of the original cast, I'm assuming it's most likely a money thing and they didn't want to pay them. Nonetheless, all the voice actors within the game do a really great job. And the characters that aren't voiced by their original voice actors don't stick out too much. But you can definitely tell in dialogue sections who's original and who's a new voice actor. Positive number 2 for me is going to be the music within the game. They have versions of many of the original songs scored by Danny Elfman. Unfortunately, they're not the exact original songs, and a lot of them are kind of remixes or done in a different fashion. And similarly to the voice acting aspect, I wonder if it just came down to budget and money, and perhaps it was cheaper to record your own version rather than going out and paying for the originals. I don't know. Additionally, spread out throughout the game within some of the biggest boss battles, there's some rhythm and button matching sections, very similar to something like Paw Rappa the Rapper. These rhythm sections do introduce some new songs and new versions of other songs, which I did enjoy. My third positive is going to be the exploration within the game and Halloween Town in general. The game basically lets you explore around most of the major areas from the movie. It also does create a few new areas separate from the movie for the game. A couple locations that did stand out to me were Dr. Finkelstein's lab, the Pumpkin Patch, and Christmas Town. Throughout many locations there are also hidden areas, of which require you to defeat waves of enemies, and doing so earns you coins that can be spent at the witch's shop. And normally you're also rewarded with some sort of statuette that can be propped in Jack Skellington's home. And to close it out, my fourth positive of the game is going to be the witch's shop and overall just the upgrade system within the game. It's very rare you see a game where the upgrades make such a huge difference. Every upgrade purchased for each of Jack's abilities essentially doubles up the ability's power, of which essentially in this game for me makes acquiring the upgrades an absolute must-do. Quite possibly why these upgrades matter so much is probably because there just aren't many of them anyways. The witch's shop isn't really super robust and doesn't really have a huge selection, so that could be the reason why they made the upgrades matter so much. Alright, well let's get into the spicy part of the review. Here are my 4 negatives with the game. Negative number 1 for me is something that I know I've complained about in other games before, most notably for me in my Resident Evil review. Fixed camera angles are no bueno. Don't get me wrong, there are some times when I think taking certain aspects of a game's gameplay away can sometimes benefit the gaming experience positively. But that has to be done for a reason, and honestly just done the right way. And in this game, it feels like the only reason they did that is so that the camera is constantly fixated on some sort of set piece that they have way in the background. And I guess that makes a difference in terms of improving cinematics or just kind of the theme, but as for the actual movement and gameplay, I mean, it really made walking around locations just super annoying. Negative number 2 for me within the game is going to be overall the combat. I would say the combat closely resembles something like God of War, or more closely would be maybe like Devil May Cry, but far less fun and interesting as those games. Essentially, Jack can transform between 3 forms. His normal form is called the Soul Robber, mainly due to the device that was given to him by Dr. Finkelstein at the beginning of the game. I was considering it his Flubber mode. His other 2 modes are the Pumpkin King transformation and his Santa Jack form. Now, I almost never used his Santa Jack form. It just felt kind of useless, and none of his abilities were really all that interesting. He just kind of throws presents on the ground, and one of them surprises and the other freezes, and to be honest, I don't even know what the third one did. His Pumpkin King form is fairly useful when surrounded by many enemies, but again, the problem is once you level up the Soul Robber completely, it's by far the most powerful of the forms, so I don't know, for the most part, you're probably going to end up using that one the most. Negative number 3 for me is going to be all of the backtracking in the game. The mission structure just leads to so many backtracking quests where it's come here, grab this item, take it back to the person who told you to go get it, fight a boss, and then rinse and repeat. Another thing that adds to all the backtracking is the save points. But luckily with that, every time you finish a chapter, it asks you if you'd like to save, so that helps out a little bit with that. And finally, healing yourself up requires backtracking, because the only way to do it is to go all the way back into town just to get to the fountain, of which when you drink its water, it heals you. Now, negative number 3 kind of leads into my 4th negative, which is the cumulative length of the game. Now, it took me about 15 hours to finish the campaign, but to be honest, I started to disconnect from the game at about 10 hours. Now, I know normally for a game, 15 hours doesn't really sound like a ton, but again, due to the amount of backtracking, it really makes it feel like it goes on much longer than it does. Alright, so we're going into my final thoughts of the game, and I bet after coming off of my 4 negatives, you're thinking, oh, ChazmaN hated that game and thought it was complete garbage. And to that I would say, nay, good sir or madam, I didn't hate the game, but I also very much didn't love it. For me, this game was quite mediocre, and honestly, I doubt most people that even really like the game go back and play it that much. I would anticipate this is very much a kind of feeling type of game where, you know, Christmas or Halloween comes around and you're like, oh, that game I love. I would say my one true problem with the game is I don't really think it adds anything new to the Nightmare Before Christmas film. It doesn't have better music, it doesn't have better voice actors, and it honestly doesn't really have a better story. I mean, I'm sure you could say this for most licensed games, but if you're wanting to experience The Nightmare Before Christmas, I would just recommend go watch the movie again. So that's my recommendation for Oogie's Revenge. I think it's a fun game for the holiday season and definitely worth a playthrough. Anyways guys, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I apologize if this comes out shortly after Christmas. I was hoping to have it out before, but it's not looking like that's going to happen. Anyways, what do you guys think of Oogie's Revenge? Feel free to comment down below or leave me any questions about the game. And as always, I just want to say thanks, love ya, please be safe, happy holidays. And I cannot wait to start another year of EnteR ChazmaN in 2021.